Easy listening.
Where are you? Where are you? Show yourself! Come on, do it! There you are.
Hey everyone, Mr. DVB here. Today I'm going to bring you all my review for The Invisible Man, which is the newest film from director Lee Whannell, who also made the 2018 action film Upgrade, and this movie stars Elizabeth Moss. So, The Invisible Man. I remember the days when this film was originally going to star Johnny Depp, and it was originally going to be a part of the Universal Dark Universe. Neither of those two things exist anymore. I mean, Johnny Depp's still alive, but he's not in this movie. Or maybe he is. Maybe he's invisible, and we just don't see him. Who knows? But yeah, this film was supposed to be a part of Universal's Dark Universe. For those of you who don't know, that was kind of Universal Studios' answer to the MCU, I guess you could say. They were trying to start up their own big franchise, except they don't own any rights to any superheroes. So their idea was to use a bunch of old horror properties that they had the rights to, like Dracula, The Invisible Man, The Mummy, etc., and make a remake of that. And honestly, I thought the concept of this universe was kind of cool. I don't know where they were going to go with it, if there was going to be some big team up with all these horror creatures, because that'd be kind of weird. But I'm not against the idea of remakes of old horror characters like that. It's not 100% unoriginal in my opinion, because you can still do original things with those concepts, such as The Invisible Man. I thought that this was a really good movie. Going into it, I was kind of looking forward to it because of all the rave reviews, but prior to those reviews, I don't know, this movie looked like a very generic, run-of-the-mill February horror film, which means, in other words, it didn't look very good in my opinion. I was expecting it to end up being received quite poorly, but that was the opposite. So yeah, I enjoyed this movie. Is it a masterpiece? Is it a fantastic horror film, one of the best I've seen in years? No, but it is a very well-executed thriller, and that's a lot more than I was expecting in the first place. I'll start off with the biggest positive for this movie, which is Elizabeth Moss, the lead. She is fantastic in this movie. I haven't seen her in anything else, but I know she's in some pretty big TV shows like Mad Men and Handmaid's Tale. Haven't seen either of those two, but I've heard she's a very good actress, and this movie proved that to me. This movie, what I liked about it was that it wasn't just, an invisible man going after this woman trying to kill her or anything like that, but it was also a psychological thriller, because she was in an abusive relationship where her boyfriend was, abusing her, and she gets away from him. He commits suicide, or so people think, but she believes that he is still alive and he is going after her with some invisible suit, tormenting her. And nobody believes her, and this movie kind of took that concept and turned it into a psychological thriller, because nobody believes her and everybody thinks she's going crazy, and she has to react to that. So it was a really cool way of handling that concept. It wasn't just, hi cat, it wasn't just some lady trying to survive this guy going after her. It was a lot more than that, and that was pretty cool in my opinion. Speaking of the suspense and the thrills and whatnot, all of that was handled excellently in this movie. This isn't a terrifying horror movie, but I thought the thriller aspect of this was great. This movie did a very good job at building up suspense, because the main threat is invisible. You can't see this person, so you'll see little tiny objects like knives float around or something on the floor move. Maybe a character's outside and you'll see cold air breath from nowhere. And I thought just all of those things really helped build up tension in these creepy moments and really added to the film's suspense. So from that aspect, I thought this movie did a very good job. Thought the soundtrack was also really good in my opinion for a horror film. It wasn't used all the time. When scenes were really suspenseful and thrillery, there would be a lack of music, which is perfect in my opinion. But other moments, the score was very loud and bassy, and it just sounded really cool in my opinion. So overall, I thought that this movie, just from a thriller and all that kind of stuff, it was very well put together. I enjoyed the entire film from beginning to end. The only real gripe I had with this movie was like the last 10 minutes or so. I thought the ending honestly felt a bit tacked on, just so they could really wrap this thing up in a perfect bow or whatever. There was another ending that I discussed with my friend who I saw this with that I think would have been kind of cool for them to go with, and it could have left some potential for another film. Not that I necessarily think there should be a sequel, but it could have left potential, or even just have an ending that's not just as, oh, okay, out of nowhere, this is the end, and it wraps up everything nicely, because I thought the ending kind of felt like that. But yeah, besides that, I thought that this was a really well-executed thriller. The acting from all across the board was really good in my opinion, but the main focus is on Elizabeth Moss. She's the main character here. There's one moment in this film, but it's not a twist, such as, oh, the big reveal. It's just a moment that nobody sees coming. A lot of people in the theater were shocked by it. I was shocked. It was a really, really crazy scene out of nowhere. So this movie did have a very good shock value to it, and I don't know, overall, just for a fun February thriller release, I thought it did an excellent job with that. So I'm going to give The Invisible Man a 7.5 out of 10. maybe bump it up to an 8, honestly. I thought it was just really well executed, and like I said, I didn't have that many problems with it besides the last 10 minutes. Also, I thought the way they handled the invisible aspect in this movie was really cool. Minor spoiler here, I guess, so if you don't want to hear this, just stop watching the video, I guess. But in this movie, it's like a suit that's created for the whole invisible aspect, and the invisible suit in this movie looked really cool. Sometimes it will be glitching out because it might get damaged or something like that, and it's just covered from bottom to top. Yeah, that's the bottom. No, from the bottom to top in cameras, and it looked really cool. So I like the way they handled the suit in this, and for a movie that only has a $9 million budget, I thought that they, used that budget perfectly. The effects all looked good. There wasn't one moment where I thought the CGI looked bad or anything like that, because it didn't need to use a whole bunch of it, but when it did use it, it was fitting, and it didn't take me out of the movie whatsoever. So yeah, really well made film, and I enjoyed it quite a bit.